Hello everyone and welcome to the Gunpla Network. I'm the Spicer and today we'll be taking a look at the 2020 Master Grade Gundam Kyrios. The GN-003 Gundam Kyrios comes to us from Gundam 00's first season and is the variable mobile suit of the first 4 Gundams. Being able to transform into a jet mode made it much more agile both in atmosphere, but it primarily functioned in space. Let's go ahead and take a look at it, but first, a word from our sponsors. This kit is brought to you by Canadian Gundam. Canadian Gundam is your one-stop shop for all your Gunpla and plamo needs here in North America. With a private warehouse option, a vast catalog, and flat-rate shipping to the US and Canada, they've got you covered here in North America. When you're checking out that vast catalog and placing your next order, don't forget to use the promo code Gunpla Network to save yourself 10%. Now as we take a look at the box, it's what you'd expect from a Master Grade from 2020. It's nice, it's vibrant, it has the cool GN effects around the text, and we get the Gundam Virtue, which is typically the Kyrios' partner in the background. We have a really interesting box here, and this isn't really anything different than what the Dynamis or kind of the Exia had before it, but this is the newest Master Grade I've built, so this is probably the best I would say a box gets. Boxes really aren't my thing, but the details here look really good and I can appreciate the artwork and the setup that goes into this. The Kyrios looks great, all the space type Tyrans look great, the Virtue looks great, the whole scene is played out very well and is very detailed, which is a nice thing. They don't have to really do that for these boxes, but Bandai kind of goes above and beyond with this kind of aesthetic. As we move to the side of the box, we get a nice front and back shot of the Gundam Kyrios, as well as its flight form, which looks pretty cool. Hopefully the transformation is pretty easy. We also see some of the gimmicks like some of the hip movements, the beam saber, the claw shield, and some of the torso movements as well. The transformation should be pretty simple, so I imagine this will still have a pretty good range of articulation as well as being pretty stable. I'm actually quite excited as this uses a lot of the same frame the Dynamis did, and the Dynamis is super solid, so this will be a pretty fun build, I'm assuming. And I have to say, like, there's some detail on this that you didn't get in the Dynamis. I feel like the Kyrios design-wise maybe isn't as colorful in certain aspects, but does still have some interesting panel lining opportunities. The inner frame looks great, the GN beam submachine gun looks great, the GN cables, well, I think they're kind of a strange gimmick. They're cool, they're there, whatever. GN verniers and all that stuff. We get to see the runners, and there's quite a few, trust me, we'll see them in a second. You get some markings, but I believe they're just stickers. We'll take a look and see in a minute. You get the little Allelujah figure that I'm 100% not going to paint because I suck at painting those figures. You have the GN missile launchers, which are a cool accessory and gives you a couple of different posing options outside of your standard sword and board or gun and board type Gundam setup. And the GN verniers pop out, which is a strange but still very cool gimmick. I'm quite excited to see what this kit has to offer and how some of these gimmicks work, because that's a lot of moving parts in a, I don't want to say small, but in some strange areas, so I guess we'll find out in a moment. Taking a look at the plates, the A plate is of course the most varied with all of our cool little GN condenser parts, most of the yellow and all the clear bits from this, as well as the teensy bit of red we get. For being a largely white mobile suit, the colors that are there do pop quite a bit as compared to the Dynamis, where the hunter green is a little bit more subtle. The yellow is very bright, the red's bright, even the green, while still being fairly subtle here as it's very similar to what the Dynamis had, is still very nice, and I assume if you put something reflective behind it will be quite vibrant. Still pretty solid plate. The B plate moves us into some of the inner frame, and it's looking kind of familiar. If you've built the Dynamis, you'll likely see at least a little bit of similarity here and there, and I'm pretty pleased with that. Everything that the Dynamis had going for it was in that build. It was very solid, it's very stable. Some of the movement was a little wonky, but generally it was really solid. The C plate will continue that. There's 2 of them that are identical, and they'll build mostly the legs and the hips, probably the elbows, I'd imagine. And they look great. The inner frames on these are still fairly interesting, but maybe not as detailed as some of their predecessors. But I think Bandai at this point has learned, probably don't pack too much in because people are going to put the armor from D-Plate on it. And D-Plate is going to look mostly like the legs here, maybe some of the hips and the beam sabers, maybe those shoulders as well, maybe some hand guards, but they look nice. Some good panel lining opportunities on these as well. Now as we move into the E-Plate, we have what looks more to be inner frame as well, but this is more unique to the Kyrios. So the back skirts, the front skirts, the little fighter portion on the head, the slightly different chest cavity for the GN drive, as it does have to allow for some of the movement for the transformation. So a little different than the Dynamis, but a lot of the same goodness. You have two F-plates that are identical, more of that inner frame, more, once again, that is pretty unique to the Kyrios here. Everything looks fine. I mean, there's a lot of these plates that look kind of the same, but they all serve a purpose. The G-plate will do a little bit more of the white armoring. Like I said, there's a lot of white on this kit, and we haven't hit the orange yet, but we're getting there. Some nice panel lining opportunities on the forearms and the legs as well. H1 and H2 will finish out everything here. Once again, all of these parts are going to be unique to the Kyrios, with the head, the little knee wing thingies, the pilot figures, the little stabby bit that comes out of the shield, which would have been nice to have been molded in something other than white, but it's not that big of a deal, honestly. Now we get that coveted orange with the I1 and I2 plates, and they look great. This maybe looks a little bit more overexposed on the camera, but it is a nice vibrant hue that's not too loud. It doesn't slap you in the face. It is a really nice color of orange. Orange is one of those colors that's really easy to go overboard with, so I think they've done pretty well with this. Then we have the J1, 2, and 3 plates, and this is something I don't know that I've ever seen a third plate. It's always like H1 or H2, but never H1, H2, H3, or in this instance, J1, J2, J3. A lot more inner frame stuff, but I believe this is a little bit harder plastic and is going to be a slightly darker shade of gray. Once again, mostly little fighter bits and stuff that's portrayed typically as black on the line art, and this is a fairly close representation, but it's kind of a black-gray versus just like a solid like jet black or anything of that nature. Just weird that it's 3 plates. We have K1 and K2, making up some of the weapons here with the GN submachine gun, which is an interesting idea, and some of the missile pods. I really do wish we would see more submachine gun, beam submachine gun type variants in Gundam. I think that would be kind of a neat thing instead of a full-on rifle. Then we've got the 2 flat beam saber blades that always look good. Love these flat GN, or I guess, yeah, GN beam saber blades from 00. And then we get the sticker sheet, and yes, they're stickers unfortunately, but you know, we get what we get. We have actual foil stickers and then the GN cabling parts, which they look fine, they serve their purpose. Once again, it's cool they're here, but not something that was like a huge deal for me personally. We have a very nice manual with the color guide on the back and the same artwork on the front. Everything looks pretty nice here. We get an idea of what this is going to look like once we've got it built and if we throw some paint on it. But with master grades, even if you're not considering this to be like, you know, what you're getting out of the box, you have a general idea. And then we get some more, mostly the stuff on the sides of the box, but some more artwork and renderings and actual built model kits here on the middle cover of the book. Everything's good. It talks about the extra little missile pod that the Kyrios had. There's not a version of that for the master grade, but I'm sure someone has 3D printed one out there probably at this point. Otherwise, you've got everything you need for the Kyrios, all of its armaments and anything we see from the show. Now, overall, I'm really excited to build this. The master grade Dynamis was really good, and since this is kind of its direct predecessor, or successor rather, I expect good things. The transformation for this is pretty simple, so I'm not too concerned about over complex movements in the legs and the torso, but variable mobile suits always have a little bit of a little bit of caution when I go at them, because sometimes you think they're going to be good, sometimes they don't end up that way. But from what I've heard, the Kyrios is incredibly stable and very solid, so I'm generally all around excited. If you've built it, please let me know if there's anything I need to look out for, and if you've got any questions, I will try my absolute best to answer them. As always, friends, I've been the Spicer here for the Gunpla Network. Please do your best to stay safe and keep on building.